Here lie 9,387 American military dead, most killed in 1944 on the beaches of Normandy and battles that followed. There are no sentimental quotations carved on the stones. The soldier's rank does not make one marker more distinctive than the next. "307 markers have no name at all. Their remains cannot be identified. A path leads from the cemetery to Omaha Beach, the place where American soldiers landed on D-Day. By nightfall of that long day, more than 9,000 Allied soldiers were dead or wounded. The markers don't tell us how they died, only the date. But 100,000 did make it safely ashore. "11 months after D-Day, Hitler committed suicide and the Nazis surrendered. The war left many European civilians wandering, hungry, and homeless. Millions died of starvation and exposure. Tommy Smith of Canton, Illinois, like most Americans, was lucky. He lived far from danger. The week the war in Europe ended, a photographer took his first grade class picture. After Tom finished college, America faced a new threat, the Cold War, a standoff between the Soviet Union and the Western powers. All men his age were expected to serve in the military. Tom was drafted. Though not a pilot, he flew in Air Force planes, taking aerial photos. He lived with his wife and never faced an enemy. His 3 years in the Air Force were simply an inconvenient interruption in his civilian life. His military experience was nothing like the terrors faced by these men in World War II. Now as a grandfather, Tom visited the U.S. military cemetery in Normandy with his family. He recalled his own years in the Air Force. Then, while slowly backing up to frame a new picture, an astonishing thing happened to Tom. His leg brushed one of the markers. The inscription overwhelmed him. It was his first and last name, his rank in the Air Force, and his state of origin, Illinois. This Lieutenant Smith died 2 months after D-Day and 6 days before the liberation of Paris. It was no one in Tom's family, but he was curious to find out who he was and how he died. Tom wrote to the Archive Center in St. Louis. This is where Lieutenant Smith's personal records were kept. Perhaps they could tell him more about Lieutenant Smith and where his family was today.
You have reached the Archival Research Room at the National Archives in St. Louis, Missouri. It appears the service records of Thomas P. Smith were lost in our 1973 fire. There may be some alternate sources of information that we can pull together on him. However, complete records cannot be reconstructed. If you would like to view the available alternate sources in ARR...
In 1973, fire destroyed 18 million files. Nearly all records for World War II Army and Air Corps personnel were lost. Tom would have to look somewhere else to find out about the Lieutenant Smith buried in France. The grave marker provided a clue, 91 Bomb Group H. First Lieutenant Smith was a B-17 pilot, commander of a crew of 9. He flew a bomber called Fifinella. Lieutenant Smith was a 26-year-old pilot, the oldest man on the plane. What happened during the mission to Normandy, France, on August 13, 1944? The crew's 16th mission began like all missions with a morning briefing. After takeoff, they circled high over the field to form a tight formation. They then headed southeast, across the North Sea for the Normandy region of France. Their target for the day was a railroad bridge off the Seine River near the town of Manoir-sur-Seine. The engineer and top gunner on Smith's plane that day was Sergeant Charles Sturgeon. Now 92, Mr. Sturgeon is the last living survivor of the 9 men on the plane. It was shot down exactly 70 years before we recorded this interview.
While we were on our approach, I looked at my watch and it was noon. And I made the remark over the intercom and said, "Hey guys, just think if we were back home today, it's Sunday, we'd be having chicken and ice cream." We thought, well, we'll go over there and drop in bombs, be home in an hour or two. And that's the way it would have turned out normally.
The bombs hit their target, but ground artillery had the plane in its sights.
We got a hit, so we had an inferno in the cockpit. And then I jumped, pulled a ripcord, and grabbed my elbows. I thought it hit a house, and I thought of my mother. I said, "Oh my, I hope there was no one in that house."
Sergeant Sturgeon and 2 others were caught by the Germans and spent the rest of the war as prisoners. Others who bailed out were luckier. They were hidden by the French resistance and rejoined American troops in France. Pilot Smith was the only casualty. All the rest would survive the war. The plane crashed into a barn 6 miles south of the railroad bridge on the edge of the village of Incarville. Those who witnessed the crash will never forget it. Now the only physical trace of it is this memorial erected to honor the bravery of Lieutenant Smith and his crew.
Puis quand je suis arrivé sur place, c'est là que j'ai vu l'avion qui a commencé à tourner. Et il tournait, alors il a fait 3-4 fois le tour, mais à chaque fois il descendait. Hein. Il devait y avoir un pilote automatique ou je ne sais pas. Et là il descendait. Le dernier tour qu'ils ont fait, je ne savais pas s'il restait 1 ou 2 pilotes dedans. On a retrouvé un morceau de la jambe, des morceaux d'ailes et tout ça, des ailes qui étaient restées entières. Il y avait beaucoup de ferraille. Hein.
Oui, j'étais jeune à l'époque, j'avais 9 ans. J'étais ici en vacances avec mes grands-parents. La maison, c'est le même emplacement, mais la maison était tout à fait différente. Hein. Je pourrais vous montrer des photos si vous voulez. C'était une petite maison basse, comme il y en avait. C'est une petite maison de vacances. On a vu cet avion qui avait été touché, qui tournait entre Louviers et le Vaudreuil, qui essayait de tomber à un endroit où il n'y avait pas trop de maisons pour pas faire trop de dégâts. Et c'est vrai que le village était beaucoup moins important que maintenant. Et on était vraiment dans les dernières maisons. Hein. Et je disais à Jean-Claude l'autre jour, nous avions un grand sapin qui poussait derrière la maison. Et l'avion, en tournant justement pour chercher cet endroit un peu isolé, est passé juste au-dessus de la maison. Son fuselage qui était en feu a brûlé le haut du sapin. Alors c'est pour vous dire... le haut du sapin a donc été brûlé. Nous, instinctivement, nous étions rentrés dans la maison. J'ai eu l'impression, ça je m'en souviens très bien, j'ai eu l'impression que la maison se soulevait et retombait. Et puis bon, les greniers, c'était de la terre battue. On s'est retrouvés au rez-de-chaussée plein de poussière, parce que forcément, ça a fait le fait que la déflagration a fait que toute la poussière nous est retombée sur le dos. Et je disais aussi à Jean-Claude que au bout de la rue, il y avait juste à l'endroit où l'avion est tombé, puisqu'il est tombé dans le champ et il a piqué du nez, puis c'était un amas de ferraille invraisemblable. J'ai vu des pommes cuites sur l'arbre. C'est vrai, c'est assez...
Par la chaleur que ça dégage.
Ça a dégagé une chaleur.
Est-ce qu'il avait quelqu'un dans l'avion, savez-vous?
Non, à l'époque, au moment où l'avion est tombé, tous les parachutistes avaient sauté et paraît-il que c'est ce qu'on m'a raconté. Ah, ça, je ne l'ai pas constaté parce que j'étais un peu insouciante à cet âge-là. Le pilote qui était resté jusqu'au dernier moment pour essayer de contrôler son avion a sauté vraiment au dernier moment. Hein. Ça, c'est ce qu'on m'a raconté, hein, parce que ça, je ne l'ai pas vu. Hein.
Witnesses do not completely agree about what happened, but the consensus seems to be this. Smith's plane was hit by flak over the target. The plane circled, losing altitude as the crew bailed out. Pilot Smith flew the doomed plane away from homes below. He bailed out too late, and he did not make it.
He was found hanging in his purser with bad head injury. My theory is, for some reason or other, he hit the Bombay doors.
"6 weeks before he was killed in action, he wrote this prophetic letter to his wife. My sweetheart and son, Today, for the first time, I fully realize the fact that I may not get back to you. I don't want to alarm you or seem melodramatic, but the fact nevertheless remains, I might not get back. I'd like you to believe that I'm doing my share of not the only one, and that I'm doing no more than the others. I love you, Grace. And I am very glad that I am married to you. I can be thankful in so many ways that you are my wife, that I couldn't possibly write of them all here. Lieutenant Smith's wife, Grace, and her 2-year-old son, Thomas P. Smith III, lived in an apartment on Chicago's North Side. In the summer of 1944, she received a telegram reporting her husband was missing in action. The building where she lived is gone now, paved over for a hospital parking lot, but this is the neighborhood. Agonizing months passed. She hoped that by some miracle he might have survived. Perhaps he was a prisoner of war or hiding behind enemy lines. Then, 3 months after the original telegram, she received this letter from the War Department.
Dear Mrs. Smith, it is with regret I'm writing to confirm the recent telegram informing you of the death of your husband, First Lieutenant Thomas P. Smith, Jr., Air Corps. It has now been officially established from reports received in the War Department that your husband was killed in action. I know the sorrow this message has brought you, and it is my hope that in time the knowledge of his heroic sacrifice in the service of his country may be a sustaining comfort to you.
The people of Incarville, Normandy, buried him in a local Catholic cemetery. They would later turn his remains over to American authorities for reburial in the Normandy Military Cemetery, where he lies today. On November 19th, 3 months after he was killed, his family held a memorial for him at the nearby Buena Park Presbyterian Church. The church no longer stands at 4247 North Sheridan Road. In 1996, it was demolished to make way for a cluster of condos. Grace never remarried. She enrolled in business school, learned to type, and became an office worker. She died in 1995. Son Tom was too young to remember his father. He would grow up to be respected by his community and elected to the city council. He died at the age of 57. He never saw his father's grave in France, nor the monument that the town of Incarville erected honoring his father's heroism.
I liked him. A guy that believed in justice. He believed in equality of people. I don't think anyone could ask for a better man than Smith was.
The people of Incarville will not forget Pilot Smith.